I woke up in a panic at 3 a.m. I have no idea why. Checked my phone, all 1,000 units were gone.
I don't hear often someone sourcing private label products domestically.
It's just so much shorter, so much easier to deal with those suppliers here in the U.S. Those products that we source domestically will sell probably about 12 million. And then the products that we're sourcing internationally will sell about 8 million.
One, two, three.
Welcome to the Smartest Amazon Seller Podcast. I am your host, Scott Needham. I have been selling for 11 years and still learning a lot. And one of the places I go to learn a lot right now, you just see a lot of conversation is on LinkedIn. And I came across this guest that I have who was doing something different than most of the conversation. Most people that talk and fill the space on LinkedIn are like agencies. They're showing, they're talking about all the success they have. They're just like, showcasing maybe to win a few clients here or there, build their brand. But this guest, I could tell was very different because he's generally speaking about his own account, his own brand, his own experience, and had a little bit less, incentive to than the agencies. And so I just found it was very transparent. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. So excited that I got Andy from Amazing Freedom Brands. Andy, thank you for coming.
Scott, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I'm really a LinkedIn newbie. I'm old school. I still hang out on Facebook.
There you go.
Yeah,
I'm coming back to Facebook and seeing that there's this little party of Amazon sellers that I haven't really noticed just because I'm a millennial, and millennials got tired of Facebook for a while. Right. We all moved over to Instagram, and
right.
I probably spent years making fun of LinkedIn. And then I realized I was like, you know what? LinkedIn is actually like the positive social network. There's not a lot of negative stuff. So it kind of hit different for me a few years ago. I was like, I kind of enjoy it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been my experience. And I had to learn that. So because I had spent so much time on Facebook, went to LinkedIn, I started making posts similar to Facebook, and I could see I was getting no love from LinkedIn. So they weren't sharing the post, or it's just a different space, right? Like you said. And then as soon as I kind of turned the lane into more business related posts, and especially, I don't know how you've experienced the last month or so, but oh my goodness, it just seems like LinkedIn, more than any other social platform right now, really spreads those posts.
They have a longer tail. People will find a post 2-3 weeks old all the time. Whereas some others, but really it's not that I didn't, it's not like the social media platform, but really what you talk about that drew me in. So I'm not sure if I've said this on the podcast before, but I've just made this decision. One of my favorite type of conversations in the Amazon space is when people transition. There's a few transitions that I've seen, people start from retail arbitrage all the way to becoming an aggregator, raising tens of millions of dollars. I've seen people go from being a reseller to an agency, then back to a reseller. I've seen, obviously a lot of people transition into private label, and myself, I was a reseller into I acquired a small private label brand. Now I have a software business, and that's kind of my space. You have a similar story. So, and right now, just to get to the end, right now where you're at is you're trying to approach 20 million in revenue on Amazon this year for a private label brand. But let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And some of the lessons that you saw and the changes that you went through.
Yeah, so I just really stumbled into Amazon 2013. prior to that, my chosen career, I was a social work major in college. And I thought I would do that for the rest of my life, human services. And, that's what I was going to be doing. I come from a family that my two brothers are entrepreneurs. My father was a businessman. And I can remember growing up, like I hated sitting at the dinner table because all they would talk about is business. and for me and my personality, all I wanted to do was love people, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of how that was in my DNA. And so whenever they talk about business, I would just tune out. So I did, follow that path, college, social work. Then my wife and I, we were house parents at a residential boarding school for kids that were financially needy. We did that for 15 years. But about year 13, I just started to get burnt out. We were dealing with really tough populations from kids that come from all over.
I dated two girls that were in social work, and it's rough on the boyfriends too.
Right.
Like it's just, you have to deal with a lot. It's tough.
Yeah. So we 12 high school boys. We raised our two children. We had like a little apartment that was attached. But a year 13, I just started to get burnt out. So I had to start a hobby or something. And I started selling on Amazon on the side. And kind of did the typical things. I just sold stuff first around my house, went to garage sales, went to thrift stores, library sales, and then started flipping things from Walmart. And then kind of moved my way up what I call the food chain to eventually figuring out, hey, I can, order things from Asia and have them shipped to me and sell those on Amazon and just put my brand on them. My first product, Scott, it was a silicone spatula set. I don't know if you remember, if you were in the private label space like 2014, 15, silicone, what still is pretty hot. But silicone back then was like the rage. And my differentiation was it was like a lime green color. So there was no lime green, silicone spatula sets on Amazon. First product, I get all 1,000 units into Amazon. Back then you could set up promo codes and, give away the product for free. And the reviewer would leave a review. They would just have to put that in the review. I received this product for free, right? Set up the promo code wrong. I shouldn't have been doing it like at 12 at midnight. I woke up in a panic at 3 a.m. I have no idea why. Checked my phone. All 1,000 units were gone. And so, the whole idea is you want to just like give away 30 or whatever. But back then, if you set up the promo code wrong, it would go wild. Actually, you can still do it today by making.
Were they 1,000 different buyers?
Well, no. So there were, some where they just ordered multiples. I forget exactly how it happened. But it was like $15,000 worth of inventory wiped out. And that was 3 months after I left my full-time job. So, I remember, I was dry heaving in the toilet.
Wow.
Because
you've learned to build a sense of humor around that now because, that's.
So I paid my price early on. I'm glad I learned it then, rather than as you get bigger, right? And then there's a lot more at risk. So that was my first foray in the private.
Did you reorder that product? Did you keep it going?
I did. Because you know what? Here's the funny part. I was the #1 ranked selling product in home and kitchen for a day.
There you go.
So I did a second order. I sold through those. I didn't order it again. And there have been many products along the way. This is like one thing, I tell people that want to get into selling on Amazon. You really, and again, typical business advice, you fail your way to success, right? And so, I did Moscow mules. What else did I did? I did glass straws. I mean, I did so many products. So you're just kind of putting your net out there, right? To see, hey, look, what's going to hit. And then you try to build your brand around that. So that's what we did. And then in 2017, my partner, who's also my nephew, we started a brand and we really hit on a good product. And that's what we then started to build out. And that's our niche now. So we've done since 2020, like between 10 and 13 million a year. We think we finally cracked the code and we should do 20 million this year in that brand.
Oh, that's awesome. That's quite a big transition. what are you usually sourcing? Like, how do you find your sourcing? Was this like Alibaba or is this, you know,
Yeah, so early on, I went to Canton. This was 2000. I guess probably our first trip was 2017. So I've been to China now three different times. The primary factory that we work with now is I met on our first trip to the Canton Fair. So we knew what we were looking for. Have you ever been to Canton?
no, I haven't. I have done a little bit of China sourcing in China, but
Gotcha.
I missed the fair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, it's just massive, right? Every day we average like 14 miles walking. It's another kind of funny story on that first trip. We were looking for a specific item. We didn't find it until like day 5. So we, walked tremendous amount of miles. And then finally, like in a little back booth, we found what we were looking for. And that manufacturer now is our current, our largest manufacturer. So started then, and then just started adding products right in that category around that niche. We have a few other suppliers that we work with in China as well. And the difficult part, and if you do you source domestically or international?
Um, International currently.
Okay. So the difficult part for us international, like if you want to scale, so this year we're trying to go from 13.6 that we did in 2023 to 20 million is it can really become a cash flow crunch, especially if you're a seasonal business.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
If you're going to be buying more inventory the next time around, you're like, well, it's really hard. It kind of like
Right.
works. It works. The numbers work against you if you have a lead time.
Yeah, yeah. So like all the best companies, they figure out how to get terms, and I forget what the cash conversion cycle is, where the best companies they're able to sell the product, recoup the cash, and then pay their vendors, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine as you scale, you're able to do that. Well, we are not there yet, and so that was the challenge as we were scaling, and we've not taken out any loans. We don't have any investment money, so we really bootstrapped it. My partner put in 100,000. I put in 100,000 in 2017, and we've been able to grow it from there. And so what we had to figure out is like, look, this is good. What we're sourcing from international, primarily from China, a few other countries, is good, but we want to supplement that with some domestic sources that will reduce that supply chain time. So 2021, we started to look at some other products that really complemented our products, but that we could get manufactured here in the US. And so we really went heavy into that. So we just started going to trade shows here in the US,
Okay.
Las Vegas, and a few other places, and then just started connecting with manufacturers, right, where the margin was right. And interestingly enough, like we're really trying to pour gas on that because it's just so much shorter, so much easier to deal with those suppliers here in the U.S. So now this year, with those products that we source domestically, we'll sell probably about 12 million, and then the products that we're sourcing internationally will sell about 8 million.
Okay.
So
So I don't hear often someone sourcing private label products domestically. Obviously, like everything that you said, like rings true. The delivery time, speed is faster. The communications obviously a lot easier. But are there, like, if you're looking for manufacturers that are like, yeah, we'll slap on a private label on these products. What types of trade shows or like where would you look?
yeah, so it really, I mean, honestly, there's trade shows for every single category, right, that somebody sells in here in the U.S.
Right, but I usually feel like those trade shows have like the brand showcasing to retailers.
Yeah, no, that's not necessarily the case. We go to trade shows now, probably 8 to 10 a year here in the U.S., and there's still a lot. I mean, the marketplace is large and Amazon's massive, but there are still so many products that aren't even on Amazon. And there's still like a lot of the manufacturers we work with here in the U.S. Some of them are a little smaller, and so they've been primarily selling like business to business. They don't want to deal with selling D to C. And so, for us to be able to come to them and say, hey, look, we can sell this amount of units, it's really like a new door for them to go through.
Yeah.
And so, that takes a little bit of work, right? Because they're not used to selling in that kind of way. But yeah, there's all kinds of places. I mean, look at all the supplement companies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you got into supplements 15 years ago, you would be, a billionaire today. They're so competitive, but all of those supplement companies, really only like 6 or 7 supplement manufacturers in the US, and, and all the supplements get made out of those.
Yeah, no, I've seen that more in supplements, like the manufacturers, they'll show up and they want someone else to do the marketing effort.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it's a great opportunity. People just, have to bring up those trade shows, whatever, category and niche you're selling in.
How different is it to reorder products from these like domestic manufacturers? Can you get that like negative cash conversion cycle or whatever?
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so far for us, it's been really good. Maybe other folks have different experiences, but we've received a lot better terms. So these are manufacturers that have been in place for a while, so their cash flow is good. So we usually get 90 to 120-day terms after we receive the product.
Wow.
And so for the most part, we've sold through, and then we're able to pay them back. We're able to see them more frequently. So I have a salesperson, and for our main manufacturer here in the US, he's able to go and visit that place 2 or 3 times a year, which, when you're in person, it just changes the dynamic of the relationship.
Every time.
Yeah. As well as for this manufacturer, he's become very astute on Amazon. And so for him, it's a real learning experience as well. So he's enjoying it from that angle, just understanding like how to sell direct to consumer rather than what he's always done, business to business.
Yeah. You had a post that, kind of went LinkedIn viral recently. This was actually, you posted this after I already was reaching out to you about how you turned off ads on some products because you're running out of inventory. And so just tell me about that experiment, how much did it impact revenue or profitability? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, being in an inventory based business, we've always, and because we've been doing it, I think for the amount of years that we have, there's always this push pull, especially when you want to try to scale. We know that every year you set sales goals, and in order to hit those goals, you got to have the inventory to sell, right, to reach them. However, we've never wanted to get to the point where we over ordered. We did do that a little bit post COVID, like everybody else, right, and their mother. And we had a little bit of whiplash from that. But since then, we're really trying to balance of having enough inventory to scale, and so again, this year we're trying to go 13, 6 to 20 without getting caught in a situation where you could, really go out of business relatively quickly. And I think if you talk to a lot of bigger folks who are in the inventory based business game, they'll tell you that the times where they almost went bankrupt is when they were carrying way too much inventory, right? And so going into this year, knowing that we wanted to hit 20 million, so we had to place a number of orders. Again, the supply chain takes so long when you're ordering from China. Some of the orders that we placed before Christmas, right? So we've had to place them before Christmas. They've still not been fulfilled, for a number of reasons. Factories in China, right? For ours, they were hit really hard after Chinese New Year. A lot of the workers didn't come back. And so they've just been really slow. And so that happened to us. It's never happened before. And so we were going gangbusters. We're a spring, summer business. And we probably should have dialed those ads back a little sooner. We didn't for whatever reason. And then we started to see, oh man, now we're in a situation where we're not going to have some of our best sellers in stock for potentially 3 or 4 weeks,
Did stopping advertising, did it slow down your sales?
Yes, yeah. So Amazon now through brand analytics, it really gives you great data, and it varies product by product. But some products, it's like 30% organic sales, 70% advertising.
Yikes.
Uh, and so, some of them are like 50-50. And so, yeah, absolutely. And it just depends on how much you dial it down. Another factor that came into play this year too is we do sell on our website, but we'll probably sell this year about 2 million. So 18 million on Amazon, 2 million on our own website.
Mhm.
But this year is the first year we're working with an agency. We started at the end of last year running ads on Google, and they're really good, so they know what they're doing. And so our website sales have outpaced, what we originally had budgeted for. So then that added, to more inventory going out. Here's a silver lining though in this situation. We've been able to raise price. So, that's another thing, right, that you can do is, as you see your inventory being depleted faster than you thought, shut off
Oh,
ads, but then we're also raising price significantly. So our margins have really gone up.
yeah. That's not the worst. Yeah, like I always say that if you're going to stock out kicking and screaming. You know,
Right.
uh,
Yeah, because here's the other part too is if we had over ordered, and again, you just never know. Like, when October 7th happened, right? I mean, the world really could have been thrown in chaos, and you never know when it would. Do you have the ability? Are you well capitalized enough, right, to live out or last for 12 months or 16 months? And I'll say that probably back then we weren't. We actually just recently got a line of credit, so it's our first line of credit, and it's a
you
Millionaire.
got are you have you gotten this far without ever using a line of credit?
Yeah, we've never taken. We both started. We both put in 100,000, and we just built it from that. So
Okay,
we've
yeah, that,
really bootstrapped
that
and try to
that's
stay
pretty
lean and mean.
that's pretty impressive because like the temptation for like loans is super high
Mm,
uh, because like of all the situations that you described,
yeah,
like um, in inventory, like you're like, oh, we got to stock up for Christmas. Well, you can only do that, you know, sometimes if you bulk up with your cash.
yeah, and thankfully again, it's a line of credit, so we don't have to pay on it unless we draw. And it's almost like at this point, it's an emergency kind of situation. But if things would have went wonky and we're carrying 3 million of inventory and sales for whatever reason fall off a cliff, we now can last a little bit longer. Like a lot of business people will tell you, look, the key to long term business is just survival. Right?
Yeah.
Just keep growing and keep surviving. And if you can do that long term, then you're going to be successful.
Well, the thing is the size of business that you have. It's not like the business gets easier or even harder. You just start playing with bigger numbers. You
Right.
know, like when you were like at 1 million to 2 million, like you still had very similar challenges.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the challenges we have now is returns. When you're selling 5 million, you average 5% returns. It's not that big of a number, but then when you bump up to 20 million, and we have a warehouse in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and we have all these returns coming back. I mean, that we have to figure out how to squeeze some money out of those returns now because you're dealing with $500,000-$600,000 worth of returns. So whether that's like refurbishing the units or doing something with them.
Yeah. Returns is like the worst part of the business because you can't ignore the revenue that's like there or the inventory value, but it's also like just so defensive of like, I'm like,
Right.
I'm working on this part of the business that like doesn't grow me.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And it sounds like you probably have just like a modest amount number of SKUs. My business with returns, we had thousands of SKUs, and
Mm.
that's when we scaled the reselling business. And returns wasn't something that like you would solve because every product is different and
Right.
every situation is slightly different. And so you end up eating 30, 50, $100 here and there. And just like,
Right.
you're never making the most optimal decision. That was my experience.
Yeah,
And
I had a friend that was in clothing, and it became so complex because you got the different sizes, you got the different colors, and man, like one listing could have literally almost like 500 different SKUs, and then trying to manage all that. Oh my goodness.
yeah, interesting. So, you've had, uh, I mean, it really sounds like, like supply chain logistics is the business, that, like where you see the challenges. What are some of your keys? Like what's kept, sanity around,
Yeah, so my partner and I, we definitely, as we began to scale, it was just him and I, and we were using a friend of mine who was also an Amazon seller. He was kind of our 3PL, right? And so he had like 4 or 5 full-time folks. They were primarily on our business. And, we were kind of, my partner and I, we were doing everything, right? And we realized, hey, look, in order to scale, we got to start bringing people on. Again, this is like typical things that people talk about in business. So that's what we started to do. We started acquiring talent, primarily in the Philippines. So we have about 40 full-time folks that work for us who are in the Philippines in all different areas.
yeah.
And they're tremendous. But just last year, we realized, okay, we need to bring in some C-suite level folks who have been here before, who have done this. And so we made 2 key hires. They're great guys, and they've been able to take a lot off of what we were doing, and which allows them, my partner and I, to focus on other things. And so honestly, like that's why I started posting on LinkedIn is I realized like one of my primary roles now is just to try to acquire more talent. As we grow, as we're, we definitely we have good capital. So we have, the ability to bring on some folks at a higher salary that are really up to speed right away. So that was a difficult thing. And my partner's amazing. I compare him to Steve Jobs. He's one of the most disciplined guys. He's my nephew, one of the most disciplined guys I've ever met. He's great at creating systems. I call him the architect. And so he did a phenomenal job with a lot of these folks that didn't have any experience at all. He systematized it, trained them right. They were able to do it. They got us, like I said, to probably like 10 or 11 million. And then we said, okay, well, look, now we got to get some higher level folks. And that's been the tremendous help as we, are kind of motoring up to our 20 million this year.
Yeah. Any business that you're in, like the founders always are going to be, I'm kind of leading the charge, but boy, you got to like replace yourselves in as many capacities as possible. I'm giving up some of the marketing that I used to do. I'm like giving it up. And it's such a weird feeling to like be like, I think that's going well. Like I haven't heard anything bad. So it must be working out.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. I struggled with that at first. Like when we brought these 2 guys, one came in and he was taking over a lot of my responsibilities. I remember calling my partner and saying, man, Nate, like, I don't like, I'm for the first time, I'm questioning myself. Like, what's my worth? Because this guy's actually better than me too, which is awesome. But it was a weird feeling.
That's funny. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely can relate. My first year selling on Amazon, 2013, built a ton of software optimizations. And then 2014, I was like sitting on my hands. I was like, I'm not creating a ton of value anymore. Kind of solved our core problems. I could optimize here or there, but that was probably, as an Amazon seller, my existential year where I was like, what do I do?
Right. Yeah. So for me, what's been really fun, I never thought I would, I just never envisioned it, has been working with the other team members that we've hired. And, some of them, we obviously we have core values. And so we really try to vet people that are going to kind of fit, what those core values are. Again, probably just like any company does. But so far, we've just been very fortunate. And so it's just a great
Yeah.
atmosphere working with these other team members, and the camaraderie and the energy, that has come from them has been something again that I never envisioned would
Yeah.
happen. That's been cool.
Um, do you, in the past few years, have you ever like felt like you've like ran some experiments and, some of them failed to land, or maybe some of them, that experiment kind of worked.
I always tell people, I said it earlier on. I mean, we've made so many mistakes, along the way. Is that what you're meaning by experiments?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean,
I feel like turning off ads is an experiment of sorts. You don't know
yes.
exactly.
Yeah. 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 No, again, what I'll say over and over, and I think something that we did well is we definitely ran the business profitably from day one.
Uh-huh.
And so because of that, we had a nice cushion where we could make some bets, right? And we could take some swings. But I mean, we've taken some, like a whole container, $75,000 worth of product that we vetted. We got the samples. We thought it was good, but it ended up being not good. And we just had to throw that entire container away. So
Wow.
it's a $75,000 loss, right?
Wow.
And you've been in the game long enough to know too, not every product hits. So even now, right? Early on, we were actually probably more gutsy, and we would just order large quantities. What we try to do now, as much as possible, and we're willing to pay a premium price, right, per piece, is we try to do a low quantity. So 100 units, 200 units, to really get it going, get it tested, and see if there's an appetite for it, see how much the PPC spend is going to be. And then if it goes well, then usually what we'll do is we'll just relaunch it because we like, Amazon's honeymoon period. So that's definitely a directional change that we've done. Here's the difficult part with that is each of those new products, right? And this year our goal is to introduce 80 new products. There's a lot of things that go into launching a product if you want to do it right. From obviously the sourcing, the sample, making sure the quality is right. And then when you start talking about the images and the copy, and, we have some off Amazon, we do a lot in social. So we have an entire social team that's out there building an audience before we launch the product. And so there's a lot that goes into it. But overall, what we're finding is that right now, that's where our bottleneck is. So we don't have a problem with potential products. We have them in the pipeline. Right now, the bottleneck though is just getting all the assets together to get those products launched.
Yeah.
And that just comes with better and more team members.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, like a product development, product launch. You can make it sound like it's like an easy 3-4 step thing, but man.
But I will say this, for folks that have stayed in the game, for 10 plus years, the opportunity is not shrinking. Like we see the opportunity. Like we know that there are products in niches where there's still only 1 or 2 offerings on Amazon. We have ours in our pipeline. We're going to be there soon. And so that's what just always amazes me. For as long as, it's still pretty young, right? 1999, so a little over 20 years. But I still think that there's just a ton of opportunity.
I'm happy to hear you say that. I hear people complain, oh, sales are down 30%. And I'm like, I don't think Amazon, the marketplace, is down 30%. So, yeah, I have a hard time thinking I don't know if Amazon really even has a down month year over year. So I think you got to look internally on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just, having the right offer, right, in that niche that's going to convert. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for just sharing some of your insights, your story, the transition. This was a fun conversation. I was hearing some of our inventory issues. I'm like, oh, we just need to never run out of stock, but it still happens.
Right. It's better to run out of stock than over order.
Yeah. I hear you on that one. Well, if people want to learn more, you're posting quite frequently, not like crazy frequent, but a lot of good stuff. Best place to find you Is that LinkedIn or
Yeah,
Facebook?
so yeah, definitely just LinkedIn. Again, like I'm just starting to do kind of sporadic posts. I'm going to China June 10th to the 20th, so I just made a post there. So I'm going to visit one of the factory owners. And Scott, I'm doing something I've never done before. I think it's called Hermes. It's like a luxury brand. I live in Central PA.
Hermes.
Yeah. See, I can't even say it right. But I'm going to Hermes in King of Prussia near Philadelphia, and I'm buying the factory owner an $800 belt because that's supposed to build guanchi. So I want to do whatever I can to try to help that relationship.
Yeah.
But for me, like I don't wear luxury clothing. I think like that's just
Hermes is like the tip of the spear of luxury. They, I listened to a full dive on them, so that's why I know the name. If we would have had this podcast a year ago, I wouldn't have known. Well, it's Andy. How do you? I've read your name for years. Yeah. Is it Slamans or
It's Slamans, like just like slamming a basketball.
Yeah.
On the end.
I hate getting people's names wrong, but I was like, that one's a little bit unique. Okay, so Andy Slamans on LinkedIn. Give him a follow. Worth your time. And I look forward to seeing how an Hermes belt, improves a relationship. So that sounds fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Hopefully you guys got a few key takeaways. I know I did. It was inspiring. And so we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
1, 2, 3.